You're listening to the No-Bullshit Vegan Podcast, episode 200, the first one that I've recorded live, featuring call-ins from team members, clients, and listeners.
Welcome to the No-Bullshit Vegan Podcast, myth-busting and evidence-based advice to help you kick butt with your health and fitness on a vegan diet. Here's your host, Karina Inkster.
Hey, welcome to the show, and not just any old episode today. This is number 200. I'm Karina Inkster, also known as Coach K, vegan fitness and nutrition coach, author of 5 books, accidental cat herder, and your host for this evidence-based bullshit-busting show since 2018. So today's episode is extra special because it's the first time that I recorded live with some of our amazing listeners and community members. You'll hear from clients, longtime supporters, and team members in my business as we chat about strength training, climate-friendly diets, vegan nutrition, home gym hacks, pretty much everything, including brainstorming names for my new kitten. Now, I started this podcast in 2018 thinking that I would have maybe a dozen guests to speak with. Fast forward 7 years, and here we are at 200 episodes, with 181 incredible interviews, because some of them were solo episodes. So thank you for supporting my work and for keeping this project going, ad-free and full of myth-busting goodness. And the best way, by the way, to support this show, other than tuning in, is to leave a star rating and a short review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts. Let's get into this celebratory episode. Hello there. I am live from Powell River in my tiny little recording studio, and I see people are coming in here. What I have to remember is that the final product is audio only, right? So I'm going to consider putting the video out, especially if people join on video. But the final product is on radio. Actually, if you didn't know, this show is syndicated on radio here in Powell River. And it's also on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and, all the like audio only formats. So sometimes when I interview someone, we're always on camera just because I feel like that's more kind of interactive and personal. But the final result is audio only. So sometimes people show me stuff when we're talking and I'm like, that's cool, I can see it, but our listeners can't. Anyways, if you are just coming in, you should be able to access the chat. And I'd love to hear where you're joining from. So in the chat, put where you're from. And then you should also see an option to call in. So it's like a request. And if you want to say hi, if you have questions, thoughts on life, anything random, I basically have no agenda. So I'm going to base my episode on what people want to talk about and who is here. And yeah, basically go from there. Chris is here. Kathy is here. Fantastic. Nebraska, Arizona, Indianapolis. Steph, hello. Izzy. Hey, and Marta. Not to like put pressure on Izzy, but if Izzy wants to say hi in the live stream, that would be cool. Izzy is one of our team members. She's our official podcast communications head honcho. So anyone who comes on the show as a guest will communicate with Izzy with scheduling and getting ready for their interviews and all that kind of stuff. So, no pressure, but if Izzy wants to say hi, I'm up for it. Also, if you hear any sort of background noise, which at the moment is like scratching at the door, that's our new kitten who does not have a name yet. And she's attempting to get into my recording studio right now. She's separated from our other cats. They have not officially met yet. We're taking it super slow, but she is scratching and being very annoying. Anyway, background noise, blame it on the kitten. I'm also taking suggestions for cat names. She is tiny. She's 12 weeks old. She's mostly black, but a little bit of tuxedo, like white markings, just a little, with white feet. And we may or may not stick with the theme of badass female fictional characters. So our other 2 cats are Ripley, Ellen Ripley from the Alien series, and Yoshimi, which is a concept album, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips. So if you have ideas in that kind of realm, fictional or non-fictional? Oh, Jasper. Kathy says Jasper. That's a good one. Yeah, we're taking suggestions because I honestly don't even know where to start. So, a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, that you all who are joining me here today and everyone who's listening to this after the fact are the reason this show continues. Because when I started it in 2018, I thought there'd be maybe 10 or 12 people to talk to or to talk about veganism with. It was kind of like myth busting and going against a lot of the pseudoscience that exists in both fitness and veganism. I was kind of thinking, 10 people, 12 people. That's kind of what I had on my list. And now 7 years later, I just did the math. So I looked at all the solo episodes I did and I subtracted those. I've spoken with 181 amazing people on this show. So that is pretty cool. And I feel like my list just continues to grow. And it's thanks to you all who are joining, who are listening, who are suggesting guests, who are suggesting topics for solo episodes. So I just want to start off by saying thank you for supporting my crazy little corner of the internet here and for supporting the show. Shout out to Kathy, especially because she's one of the OG podcast supporters of my work from way back in the day. Like 2017, probably even before the show started. We got to meet in person in Kerrisdale, where I used to live in Vancouver before I moved to Powell River. So that was probably 8 or 9 years ago. My sense of time is really bad, so forgive me if that's not correct. But it was definitely before we moved, and that was 2018. So extra shout out to Kathy, who's here. Thank you for supporting my work. Thank you to everyone who tunes into this show. And I also wanted to mention, I think it was episode 1 or episode 2, where I pulled out something that Sam Harris always says about his podcast. He's got one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and he has an option to support him on, Patreon or whatever. But he has this belief that, or not, maybe not belief, but he has an approach that advertising in podcasts kind of minimizes whatever comes next in the episode. And we both have shows that are very science-based and we're busting myths and that kind of stuff. So I want to read out what Sam Harris says about advertising, because this show doesn't have sponsors of any kind. I've been approached multiple times, even by large-scale companies like MyFitnessPal, the food tracking app, for sponsorships, and I say no. So this is why. In the words of Sam Harris, he says, "It's a problem that so many people expect to get podcasts and other digital media for free. We've trained ourselves to expect this by creating an internet economy based on advertising. But advertising is not free because these companies want some of your time and attention. That's what they're paying for. And every podcast that relies on advertising contains 5 or 10 minutes or more where the host reads ads. So there's this cost to the host's honesty or perceived honesty. If I spent the first 5 minutes of every show trying to sell you a mattress, you could reasonably worry about whether my enthusiasm for it was sincere. What else might I exaggerate if I'm willing to assure you week after week that memory foam will solve all your sleep problems?" So he put it better than I ever could have. The whole point of this show is to bust myths and to be authentic and to support big fitness and big nutrition companies. So anyway, that's kind of the background, and that's why we don't have sponsorships and advertising of any kind. And we, basically sometimes get clients from the show. Otherwise, I'm just doing it as a passion project. And Kathy says 2018, when we met in Vancouver, right before you moved. Okay, thanks for that reminder, because again, my sense of time is really crappy. So I want to tell you a little bit about an upcoming talk that I have and how it relates to a guest that I just booked this morning for the show. So everyone who's here live, y'all are hearing it first, who this guest is and why I'm having him on the show. And by the way, in the chat, Susan says Cleocatra. That's a good one. Cindy Clawford. Oh God. Okay. Don't even get me started with the pun names. That's awesome. But in the chat, put in some topics, put in some questions, anything you want to ask. It's free for all today. We've got a good group of folks here joining. So I'm looking to you for things to chat about. And also, if you want to come and speak with me for even 60 seconds, I would love that. So it's not just me as a talking head for this whole hour. Just say hi. Let me know where you're from. There's a request button to join the live stream, and then I will see your name and your request, and I can add you in for a couple minutes. That'd be sweet. Okay, so the thing I wanted to tell you about is a talk that I'm preparing for. I'm actually preparing for 2 talks. One is the Veg Fest in Nanaimo. Is anyone here from the island? I've scrolled through, but I think mostly people are in the US, although Marta's joining in from Pender Harbor. July 5th is the Nanaimo Veg Fest on Vancouver Island. And guess who is going to be one of their featured speakers? So I'm preparing that talk. Oh, Sarah's from Victoria. Hi, Sarah. Maybe I'll see you at the Nanaimo Veg Fest. So I'm preparing a talk on strength training, supporting strength training with a plant-based diet, busting myths in veganism. I feel like that's pretty straightforward, honestly, because that's what I do, right? The other talk that I'm preparing is about climate change and how our dietary choices can impact greenhouse gas emissions, climate change in general. Now, I'm not an expert in climate change or the environment or agriculture, but like I mentioned before, I've spoken with 181 different experts on this show, and a lot of those people are experts in this realm, right? So I'm going down this massive rabbit hole of how do our dietary choices affect climate change? And also an area that's new for me, can we actually grow our food without any inputs from animals? So there's this whole concept that you need animal products, like bone-based fertilizers or cow manure and stuff. This whole idea that we need those things to grow vegetables and fruits and grains, but that's turning out to not be the case. So I went down this whole rabbit hole and started looking for folks who are running commercial, large-scale food growing operations that are completely vegan. And I found many people, actually some in my existing network. And one of them is in the UK. His name is Ian Tolhurst. And he has run a completely vegan certified food growing operation for 39 years. So like full production, food exports, the whole thing. I'm going to be talking with him on Wednesday. So I'm very excited about this. And we're going to go down even more of a rabbit hole about how we can actually grow our food with vegan compost only or vegan-based fertilizers. Because the research and the data shows that any amount of animal products that are used, that are consumed, that are produced in any way is worse for climate change than 99% of plant-based foods. So there's a section in my talk where I'm comparing really processed and imported vegan food with backyard eggs. And I think it's probably going to piss some people off. But this is what I'm planning to say. And this is a talk that's coming up on the 30th, so I haven't done it yet. The least sustainably produced plant-based foods are better on all climate-related metrics than the most sustainably produced animal-based foods. So this is kind of blowing my mind, even as someone who's been vegan for 22 years. So let me say that again. The least sustainably produced plant-based foods are better on all climate-related metrics than the most sustainably produced animal-based foods. So your hothouse vegetables, your fruit flown in from across the globe, your delicious, super processed plant-based treats with 17 ingredients, those are all better in terms of climate change than the local chicken or the backyard eggs that your friend just bought at the farmer's market. And I know this about animal agriculture. We've had folks on the show before talking about, how plant-based food production is better for the planet in general. But I didn't know that backyard eggs are actually worse for climate change and emissions than imported food. And it has to do with a lot of different factors. One is just that animal-based products are inefficient, right? You're using a whole bunch of calories from grains to produce fewer calories and fewer grams of protein in the form of eggs or chicken or whatever the product is. So it's inefficient. And then also I learned that chickens produce manure that emits nitrous oxide. And that's a greenhouse gas. It's almost 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So just the existence of these farm animals, and cows, of course, are a huge emitter of methane, means that they're actually worse for emissions and climate change than importing your fruit from halfway across the globe. So anyway, it's going to be an interesting conversation. The other speaker is a local farmer and food grower. And so, yeah, I think it'll be a good, it's not a debate. It's going to be a good discussion. And I'm hoping that there's going to be some folks who are considering changing their diets, because I don't know about you, but when I go to events that are about climate change, I am very surprised at how few people are plant-based. The research is so obvious. It's so clear. What we eat has a huge effect on climate change. And like 2 people out of 50 are vegan. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, that's my little rant about climate change. I do actually want to make a podcast episode about this. So once I've got the talk finalized, once it happens, I think I'll do a solo episode on what this all means and the data and emissions numbers and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. Can you put in the chat, was anyone here either for my food prep session last week that we did on Zoom or my live workout that I just did on Wednesday? We've got a couple folks here. Was anyone on those sessions? We did a black bean brownie food prep session on Zoom. I think we had about 16 people there, which was pretty good. And then on Wednesday, I did a live workout where I'm streaming on Instagram and Facebook. And I kind of miss doing that. I used to do that pretty regularly during COVID when everyone's gyms were closed and they were like, what am I supposed to do for my fitness? So I was doing weekly live workouts for a while, like a number of months. So doing this a couple days ago reminded me like, it's actually pretty fun and it's cool to connect with the community. Yeah. So I'm considering maybe like a once a month or something. I did a book giveaway. So I think Sarah and Susan actually are both on the stream here. They have, thanks to the Google random number generator, they've each won a copy of one of my books. So those will be sent out soon. Oh yeah, we do have some people here. And let me add Izzy to the chat here. Hello, Izzy.
Hello.
Hello there, everybody. Meet Izzy, who is, she's audio only, not camera ready. That's okay.
No, definitely not camera ready right now, unless you want no makeup and frizzy wet hair. So no.
Hey, I would not complain, Izzy. But also the final result of this is audio only, so it's all good.
There you go.
But hey, everyone, meet Izzy. Izzy is our podcast communications head honcho. And again, Izzy, I'm sorry. My sense of time is so bad. How long have you been on our team?
Well, I've known you, I think, for just over 10 years, but I've been on the team for almost 7. So just, I would say maybe 6 or so months after the podcast started, I think.
That seems about right.
Because I remember listening to it in one of my old jobs. So I know it's at least 7 years ago.
That's so awesome. So cool. Can you tell the folks how we met?
Yeah, we actually met. So long story short, one Veg Fest in Vancouver, which I probably want to say was 2013. I remember seeing Karina's, she had a little stand at the Veg Fest. It was a free Veg Fest on Granville Street. And I picked up her business card. I don't think you were actually at your stand when I came by. I think it was maybe one of your friends. Anyways, I picked up your business card and was like, oh, if I ever need a personal trainer, that's really cool. There's a vegan personal trainer. And then flash forward about a year after that, and I wanted to actually start strength training. Yeah, there was that vegan personal trainer at Veg Fest. So I still had Karina's business card and I reached out to her. So yeah.
And the rest is history, Izzy.
It's been a long time, but yeah, I just wanted to say, I remember listening to the very first episode of the podcast 7-ish years ago, which just to say that out loud, 7+ years is incredible. So well done to you.
Thank you.
Because it's a fantastic podcast. And I'm not just saying that because I'm involved in it, but it is a fantastic podcast. And I think that just that you've had such a variety of guests and that you've been going so long is just such an incredible achievement.
Oh, well, thank you, Izzy. Hey, and for everyone who's here, Izzy has been on the podcast as a guest twice or 3 times? Twice at
Maybe
least.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah, more. We did one actually as a group, like with the KI team.
Yeah.
And then we've done a couple just with Izzy about strength training and your journey.
Yeah, I think I've done 3 solo episodes.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One was like surgery recovery. One was chin-ups.
Yeah.
By the way, everyone, Izzy has nailed her long-term goal of doing a full, perfect form unassisted chin-up. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks.
And it's been, what now? Over 10 years that you've been strength training consistently.
Yeah, I started in December 2014. So yeah, a while back. So, and in that time, like I've come on board your team as well. And I've also renovated our staff gym where I work. So,
oh, yes. Yeah. Can you tell folks about that project?
Yeah, sure. So I work at a hospital out in White Rock, and we have a staff fitness facility. So if you work at the hospital, you just pay like $7 every couple of weeks. Super cheap, really affordable. And it's right in the basement of our hospital. So I literally walk down 2 flights of stairs and I have a gym 24/7 to access, which is fantastic. And the gym's been there, I want to say it like maybe about 15 years or so. And I was looking around it one day and I was like, we kind of need some repairs and some new equipment going on here. Because we had like half of the gym was floored, the other half wasn't, that sort of thing. Treadmills were super old, limited strength training equipment. But don't get me wrong, at least we had something, right? So I worked with a couple of people at my workplace and we basically renovated the whole gym. We got some equipment donated from another site. So we managed to replace some of our cardio equipment, managed to get some additional strength training equipment. And I went through Karina's resource actually on her website that says like how to build your own home gym. I cross-referenced that. I also chatted with Karina and with Coach Zoe as well, because Zoe's really into kettlebells and strength training with kettlebells. So we basically kitted out this gym. It's pretty much got everything you need, apart from like a freestanding barbell and like squat rack, just because you can be down there on your own. And we just want to minimize people getting potentially injured. So we have like a functional trainer instead, which has those features in it, which is really neat, but it just enables you to stay safe when you're working out. So yeah, we have a fully equipped, really awesome little gym, the little gym that could, in our basement at the site. And the really nice thing is like our gym tech was on site a couple of weeks ago because one of our treadmills had stopped working. And he was like, you pretty much have everything you need here. And I was like, coming from someone whose job is to maintain all like different fitness facilities, that made me feel really proud. Because I was like, I think it's a pretty good gym. And when people come in, they think it's pretty good too. So it's a small but mighty little operation.
That's so cool. The little gym that could. I love that. Well, congrats to you. I mean, this is also a way that people are recognizing that you know what you're talking about, right? They're like, oh, well, Izzy strength trains and she's been doing this for a super long time. Let's get her to spearhead the work gym project.
Yeah. And we've just started. I just about finished it. We just got to do some testing, but we've taken all our old gym paper membership forms and we've put it online. So now you can sign up online. So I feel like we're moving, the gym's been renovated and we're moving our like sign up process into a new sanctuary. Ooh. So yeah. And anyone that works in healthcare, they would know how difficult it is to get any money to do anything. So I'm really proud of what we've managed to do.
That's so cool. And also anyone who works in healthcare, I assume, also knows how difficult it is to make time for your own goals and your own fitness. Yeah. So having resources that are available like right there, I think is key. You know, honestly, I think that's why so many of the people that I swim with in the morning are doctors, because the aquatic center is literally across the street from the hospital.
There you go.
So it's just a convenience thing. You know, they're walking the talk, they're doing the thing that they're telling all their patients to do, basically. And it's like a huge proportion of my swim buddies who happen to be doctors. And it's just like, well, hospital's over there. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And I know for myself, like the fact that it's just downstairs is just, it's so convenient because I work out at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. So like 3 days a week, I'll go down and I'll work out. And on the other 2 days that I'm there, I'll usually go take a walk. But the fact that it's literally just a hop, skip and a jump away from my desk is a complete game changer. And I would say probably also one of the reasons why I've worked there for the last 7 years, because not every site has that. So I'm aware if I move to a different facility, might be taking my own dumbbells with me, let's put it that way, and my TRX.
Well, okay. Knowing you, though, I mean, whatever the situation is, you would make it work.
Yeah,
You've got a home set up with TRX, etc.
Yeah.
You'd still make it work. But I think, as Steph just said in the chat, what a fantastic way to support all your coworkers.
Yeah.
Convenience lets you build sustainable habits.
That's
right?
so true. And the really neat thing is I've actually been nominated for an award as well within Fraser Health. It's called the Above and Beyond Awards.
Huh.
And my manager actually nominated me and the other two people on our gym committee.
What?
I don't believe we're going to win. There's a lot of competition, and it usually goes to some physician that puts together some amazing project. But it's actually an award that recognizes people and their contributions towards improving staff and patient wellness. So
wow.
Ours is sort of on the staff side, like all the work that we've done to actually make it a better and healthier place for people to work.
That's huge. Hey, even just being recognized, even just being nominated. I mean, that's amazing. Congrats. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm learning this right now.
Bit secret. Only Carl really knows, and my husband. But yeah.
Well.
But yeah, it's a nice accomplishment just to add on to that. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Well, thanks for jumping on, Izzy.
No worries.
Nice to see you. Well, nice to hear you. I will see you soon.
Yeah. And like I said, just a
thank
huge congratulations again, because it's a fantastic podcast and I know how much work you've put into it. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being part of our team and communicating with all of our guests who have been on the show. Pretty much all of them. I mean, basically from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being on the team. I appreciate you being so awesome. Let's all say thanks to Izzy for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Is anyone else up for saying hi? I see Steph here. Kathy, do you want to say hi potentially? You know, not to put you on the spot or anything, but it would be awesome to say hi. Just saying. Marta, I'm just naming random people at this point. Sarah, Susan, Chris is here. I have no agenda, so who else do we have on here? Well, there's more people, but they haven't been in the chat, so I don't know their names. I think that's mostly the people I see in the chat. By the way, I'm also taking suggestions for podcast topics, podcast guests, things you want to see on the show. Marta, I see you waving. Do you want to do a request to join? I don't know if that means like pick me or you're just saying hi. I can't tell. But there's a button that says request to join if you want to say hi. And same deal, Kathy. Ooh, Steph is here. Hello, Steph.
Hey, hi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can you give our friends here a bit of a background on how we're connected?
Oh, how lovely. I got to train with you and Coach Zoe and the team for a while. I did online and using the app. It's fantastic. So much progress, and the insight and wisdom you and the team provides is so beneficial and life-changing.
Oh, well, thank you, Steph.
Absolutely.
We feel like we're the luckiest coaches in the world because everyone we get to work with is just like so awesome. And I think I remember, I don't think it was you, Steph. It was someone else who like wanted to make sure that we were their people, you know? Like on the same page. And yeah, we're vegan, but also are we like weight neutral and against diet culture and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, all the inclusive ways that you can be.
Yeah, that's what we're trying. You know, I mean, everyone's still learning, but I just feel like, you know, folks like yourself and all of our clients, we're just super lucky to work with you.
Well, it's a likewise event.
So what are some of the things that you want to chat about? You mentioned suspension trainers in your comment here.
Yeah. So, you know, when we started, I bought the resistance bands and then I got some dumbbells and some kettlebells. And I feel like I've now sort of switched up and adding in suspension trainers. And because I was like, well, I don't want to just keep buying more dumbbells or more kettlebells because I only have so much space and so much budget. And so what other tools can I bring in to add some variety and some different resistance and different options? And I'm just curious, like, what's your suggestion and what do you want to talk about around adding in suspension trainers and with the other things that you already have? Like, how do you choose? What are you going to do which day and which exercises are you going to do on which item or with which item?
That's a great question. I kind of see suspension trainers as the thing to get after resistance bands. So if someone's building out a home gym, as Izzy was just saying, she went through my whole list in the article that we have on our site. Resistance bands are always number one. That's like, they're so versatile. They're cheap. They're like, the size of, I don't know, a watermelon, a small watermelon or a large grapefruit.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you smush them all together into your luggage, right? So resistance band, I would make sure that you're covered first, which I know you are. Then actually the next thing on the list in terms of priority is a suspension trainer. There's a whole bunch of pieces of equipment where we're like, yeah, you don't really need that. Yeah, you're not going to get a lot out of it. But suspension trainer is literally number 2 on the list. And so what I would do is use both resistance bands and suspension trainer. But the moves that are more challenging on the suspension trainer, I would do on that. And the moves that are more challenging on resistance bands, I would do on those. So it depends.
Yeah. So which ones are which?
Right. So I'm thinking about doing back moves. So for our lats, for our rhomboids, rowing moves, I find that more challenging on the suspension trainer.
Absolutely.
Because you can use more weight. Like generally we need more resistance for those moves versus something like a bicep curl. I like doing with the bands because you have tension. Like if you're standing on the band and you're doing a bicep curl, you've got tension the whole time, up and down. It just feels more challenging somehow. And maybe I'm just making that up. I don't know.
It's different, right? One of the things I've been practicing with is how does tension feel in my body and what is tension in which areas of my body? And so how, as we're doing certain exercises, if I'm doing something that's requiring chest work, do I have tension in that area or am I only using my arms, and sort of bringing that body awareness into it? And I've been playing with that with the suspension trainers and they're new for me. So I'm playing with that. Then I'm going to when I get back home again and I've got my resistance bands, how does that feel there? And how do I integrate both of those pieces in?
Mm-hmm. Well, it also depends on where you're using these pieces of equipment, right? Like if someone is about to travel, they might only have space for resistance bands and not the suspension trainer. I remember when my husband and I were in Australia for 3 weeks, we took only carry-on. So we didn't have any checked baggage, very limited space. But I did actually bring a TRX instead of my resistance bands because I knew we would be outside a lot, with like trees I could hang it on, or you could just put it in a doorway if you needed to. So my gym for 3 weeks was basically just a suspension trainer.
Yeah. So I'm in New Hampshire where I don't have access to all the pieces that I want for the resistance band work that I'm now doing. So I brought the suspension trainers because they're new. I'm like, well, let's play with some of that. Because guess what? I can go out and use the trees. I can go out and use the things that and so absolutely, how do you pick and choose when you're traveling what you're taking?
That's a good point. I don't know if I have a one size fits all answer.
Well, I think it depends on where we are in our training and what we're doing with it and what the focus is too.
That's true. Yep. Folks who are listening to the audio version won't be able to see your amazing background, but you are in a very beautiful cabin setup. So I assume you have your own self-contained home workout setup.
I actually I'm in a log cabin that is built from trees that were felled in a hurricane in 1937.
Wow.
And so I have beams going across the log cabin, and I'm going to hook up my suspension trainers to one of the beams here in the main room, because I found that last year when I was here and I was trying to use my resistance bands, I only had 2 places where I could hook them up and I wasn't getting all of the piecework that I wanted. And I also was injured last year, so we modified what I was doing. But now that I'm not, I brought the suspension trainers and I'm going to hang them from the beam across the top of the room. So
Smart.
Yes.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of folks I know are retrofitting specifically for fitness equipment. It's pretty great. Anchor points on the wall at 3 different heights for resistance bands,
Well, yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. My son went to college and I took over his room.
Hey, by the way, kudos to you for your super consistent strength training work. I mean, you have come a long way and you're able to do things like this crazy ditch digging project you were talking about. Good Lord.
Yeah.
That's insane. It's making me tired just thinking about it.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for the support that you and Coach Zoe provided, because I wouldn't have gotten here without that. And the ditch digging is the main line, water line broke added from well to main house. And guess who got to dig it up? But we're fixed now. And now we're putting sand and dirt back on, which is also hard work.
Good times. Good thing you're strong.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, Steph, thank you so much for being awesome, for saying hi on the live podcast.
Well, thank you.
For being in my corner of the internets.
Yeah.
And yeah, we will chat soon.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, we do have Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Hello there. Thanks for jumping on.
I have a comment, a question, and then a suggestion.
Ooh, love this. Okay, bring it on.
My comment is just, thanks to you and Zoe for all the help that you've given me and questions that you've answered and everything like that. So I've achieved pretty much all the goals that I had set out to do. So I appreciate that.
Hey, can you share with the folks here what those are? What you have nailed in the world of strength training and ridiculous feats?
I kind of got involved in the vegan space, I guess, after the Game Changers. And so I just wanted to kind of see if I could get stronger, just on a plant-based diet. And so I've exceeded all of my previous lifts. So for bench press and deadlift and squat. So I would say the answer to that question is yes. I was able to do that. So my friends still don't really want to hear about it or anything like that, but that's okay.
That may change, Chris. That may change. You never know. Just keep doing your thing.
We'll see. It does make me more motivated, though, to keep going with it, because people just don't even want to try. Like, people don't even want to try tofu or any sort of soy product, especially guys. So,
well, you're showing them how to really fuel strength training and how to get the protein you need and have a program that makes sense and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, congrats to you for personal bests across all 3 power lifts. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, so I'm real happy with your program and stuff like that. So thanks. And then the question is kind of tagging along with that. What should my next goal be? Just taking suggestions, I guess.
Hey, well, if anyone here has ideas, Chris, do you want to share what you've lifted with the group here?
I guess my goal was to be able to bench 250, which I think I'll be able to do that. So I guess my next goal after that is, I guess what would be a realistic goal, something like that. And then a time frame.
In the same realm of lifting heavy shit, or possibly a different realm?
Or just whatever suggestions,
Okay.
It doesn't have to be just,
So one kind of longer term goal would be basically like, how far can I go with these lifts?
Right.
And not actually having a number, right? So continuing the progression, continuing to mix up your rep ranges, right? So sometimes we do 10 reps, which is kind of higher reps. And sometimes we do lower, like 5 sets of 5. And they're just kind of seeing like what happens. But if that doesn't really speak to you, because it's not like, I must deadlift 600 pounds by July 1st, we probably could come up with some numbers based on your current progression. But I also wonder if there's other things you want to work on. I've got a friend who is just getting into Olympic lifting.
Okay.
So like doing more cleans and overhead presses and kind of more like compound moves. And he's also getting into conditioning. So it's kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So he's doing lifting over here and conditioning, jump rope, MMA, double unders, short but intense kind of things. So one of his goals is to do 50 double unders in a row, which is an insane conditioning goal, right? So just throwing out ideas at this point, but it could be continuing with the lifting. And I think we could actually look at your data and make kind of progression for where we think you could go. Or we could do a 180 and just keep lifting, keep doing the thing, and then try something totally different. But you'd need something that you're super interested in. So some people are like, I want to do a sprint triathlon, or, like my friend who wants to do 50 double unders in a row, whatever. It would have to be something that's just like it means something to you. It's not just random.
Yeah, the Olympic ideas lifts sounds like a good idea. So maybe we can talk about that later. So
For sure. Yeah, I'm into it.
I don't want to take too much time so other people want to talk. But the suggestion I had was for your podcast, which is always great content, but maybe have like a debate with somebody who's not on the vegan space like that. I think that's good because people might want to hear what the other side has to say. And, especially if it can be a productive, friendly conversation like that. What I hear a lot and you can Google, YouTube has a ton of those anyway, but the ones I always hear is like, it's always a debate about health, what is health per se? But that's not even really, that's not why I eat plant-based mostly. So,
right. Totally.
It'd be nice to see a debate where it's like, they do talk about the health and that, but then also I would want to hear what the other side of that is saying about compassion.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting idea.
That never comes up whenever I see, that doesn't come up that often.
I feel like maybe part of the reason for that is because the only ammo that people have against the ethical side is health arguments, which may or may not actually be legitimate. But I mean, you can't really argue with the ethical piece. Although people do try. They do try. I'm in various vegan related subreddits, and one of them is Debate a Vegan. So it's literally just for debating. And there's a lot of people trying there. It's a lot of cool discussions though, mind you. So I kind of like that idea. We haven't I think there's really only been one episode where we've kind of had like a back and forth, like, nah, I don't agree with that. Here's why. And it was someone who was actually on the plant-based eating spectrum, just not fully.
Okay.
And his reasoning for why he still ate eggs and chicken and stuff. And I'm like, I don't agree with that. So that would be cool. If you have ideas for who that might be, like someone who would be, well-versed in ethics and kind of all okay with being on a vegan themed podcast.
Yeah.
I'd be open to it for sure.
Okay.
Do you follow Dr. Matt Nagra?
I don't follow him, but I know who you're talking about.
He's been on the show. He's honestly probably the only naturopath that I follow because he's so research-based and like so legit. He's amazing at not just condensing research into something that makes sense, but also debating. So I think the video that we sent was him debating, I don't even remember what it was on, oil maybe, or soy. And so he's someone to follow for specifically like having conversations with people who are not anywhere near vegan. But yeah, well, thanks, Chris, for coming on. So great to chat. Thanks for being in our world and on our client team. Keep kicking ass.
Will do.
And we have Kathy coming on. Let me just add you on here. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hello. Nice to see you. Yes, I can.
Awesome. Everyone, I have met her. She is just, I love her to death.
Aw.
Or I love her more than life. So thank you. Just, I put it in the question in the chat as well in case we didn't get a chance, but have you ever, and I know there's tons of summits out there, but have you ever thought of putting together and hosting, which I'd be happy to volunteer for, a summit, whether virtual or in person, all about how sustainability is all connected, and then, make a focus being veganism maybe, but in that type of spirit, like, okay, sustainability is so connected to everything. Here's one way, and then have it factor into different, topics.
Very interesting question, because I have considered hosting a summit of some kind, but I didn't think of a relatable topic that like a whole bunch of different experts could talk to. We've done one, I don't know if you remember, we did the I think it was 5 or 6 different coaches and dietitians for the 10th anniversary of my business.
Yep, I remember.
Which would have been 2021. So, I mean, it's not so much a summit as just a conversation with a whole bunch of guests. But I like this idea. And so what do you mean by sustainability?
So obviously veganism has different, people are attracted to veganism for different reasons. But it would seem that based on all the different facts that you bring up, that, in light of what you were talking about earlier, that there are so many interconnections, right? Everything has so much intersectionality And veganism is a big one because it can affect so many different ideas when it comes to sustainability. Sustainability is, again, very intersectional. So there are so many different avenues that one could play into, but depending on who you bring in and what their motives are, right? I would hope that most people could at least agree it's not about trying to change opinions altogether, but at least giving them the ideas and the concepts of, okay, well, if you want to be more sustainable, guess what? You can try all these different, whatever it is, to include veganism. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I like that idea because it's not just focused on veganism that way, right?
Exactly. But veganism can be a focus of it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Look at you with the brilliant ideas. That is awesome. Thank you for that, Kathy. And also, while I have you here in person, thank you for being such an OG long-term supporter. I mean, you were there at episode 1, which was already multiple years into my business at that point, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I appreciate that. We had delicious vegan ramen.
I still remember so well. We ate so much.
I'm like, did I finish this whole thing?
But the best part was just the fact that I got to finally meet someone that I consider a mentor and someone who now obviously has been a friend. So I just can't say enough. And so everyone, it doesn't matter because I'm vegan curious, right? But obviously to be a friend is just to be a friend. So I support as many ways as I can. And, hopefully one day I get to give back what everything Karina has given to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
And to everyone on your team.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So awesome. Yeah, I remember we were connected, I don't know, like in 2015 or 16, maybe?
Probably 2016.
16?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a couple years later, you're like, hey, I'm coming to Vancouver. And I'm like, oh, really?
Like one of those, what? Sure. And you were just so sweet. And I was late on the train, but that wasn't my fault, but you still stuck with me. So I appreciate that.
Well, thanks so much, Kathy. So great to chat.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, let me go back to the chat here. Okay, last couple of minutes. Coach Zoe has joined us. Y'all, can you see her in the chat? Hello to Coach Zoe. I was going to say I'm not sure if she's camera ready or not because I know that she was working super late last night. But hello anyways. Extra shout out to Coach Zoe. Much like Izzy, who has been around for a while in our business, I so appreciate the opportunity to work with awesome people like Coach Zoe. Fun fact, I've mentioned it before on the show, but if you don't know, fun fact is I met Coach Zoe and my husband at exactly the same time, 19 years ago. So I've known Coach Zoe and Murray both for almost 2 decades. And that's because Coach Zoe and Murray used to work together at a coffee shop called JJ Bean in Vancouver. And it's like a touristy place called Granville Island, where I also used to work while I was doing my undergrad. So let's get Coach Zoe in. Hello. Hey. So how have we known each other for almost 2 decades? How's that even possible?
I have no idea. And I mean, I think that the running theme that I know a lot of people have experienced in the post-COVID era is that our conception of time has completely been altered and impacted and skewed. But I fondly remember our Granville Island days when you worked at the bead store, where it all began.
You got to witness the whole, like, me chatting with Murr, being like, he's pretty cute. And then I asked him out and we went out for dinner at the Nom, which still is, but it's like the institution of vegetarian vegan food in Vancouver.
Iconic.
And Murray was not even anywhere on the vegetarian vegan spectrum at that point. Now he's vegan. So just saying. Made the decision on his own. So you never know. But yeah, you were there. You were there for all that.
Yeah. I don't know if this is too bold of me to say, but I do like to think that I take some credit for encouraging the early stages of the budding romance.
I love that. Yes, definitely take responsibility for being a part of not like the setup, but the progression.
Exactly.
And I used to go to JJ Bean and get the
shiver.
What was it called? It was called Mocha Shiver. It was like this coffee drink that was iced with a whole bunch of chocolate. And I basically spent like, at the time in whenever it was, 2006, it was like $6, which back then was a lot for a coffee drink. I basically used to just go there and buy the insane coffee drink just to say hi to Mur.
I was just going to say, and to clarify, you were only there for the shivers, of course.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, there's something not quite 100% on the audio, so I will let Coach Zoe go. But thank you so much for being on the team. And I look forward to our next podcast episode together. We definitely need to do one, furthering myth busting and all the things that we talk about when we get together. And also, I would love to do a team episode with Coach Kalen, who lives in Powell River, which is where I am.
Yes.
And also Izzy. So if we do like a team, that would be awesome.
Yes.
And anyone else who has any suggestions for topics or guests you want to have on, I think that would be sweet. Murray says, Zoe was like, I think she likes you. Yeah, see? So she can take responsibility, right? She can take responsibility in the whole situation. So anyone who has cat name ideas, podcast episode topic ideas, event ideas like Kathy's for the summit, get in touch anytime. I will let y'all go, but thank you for joining the first ever live recording of the No Bullshit Vegan podcast, and also the official 200th episode. Very stoked about that. Never thought I would see that number showing up, especially as a show that comes out only every 2 weeks, right? So thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone who came and chatted. Super great to speak with you all. A bunch of clients are here, so we will be in touch soon. And thank you again for supporting the show, for being in my corner of the interwebs, for being awesome. And we will chat soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. As mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the best way to actively support this show is to leave a star rating and a quick review on your podcast listening app of choice. And if you'd like to connect with me, head over to our show notes, nobullshitvegan.com/200. Here's to the next 200 episodes.
Thanks for listening to the No Bullshit Vegan podcast at nobullshitvegan.com.